From 1931 to 1961, music continued to be a vital part of the ministry of Lake Avenue Baptist Church. We begin with images from the early 1930s, the junior choir, and the church youth orchestra. It was on April 22, 1932, that Church Choir Group 1 presented the annual spring recital. And a week later, on April 29th, Church Choir Group 2 presented the second annual spring recital. And we know that 1 week later, on May 4th, Church Choir Group 3 presented its second annual spring recital. And it was during that same year, from 1932 to 1933, that the choir published a book of rhymes written by choir members. Some of those writers are pictured here in the 1933 Young Adult Choir. And on November 11, 1933, the Westminster, New York Choir Fall Festival was held at LABC. In addition to a variety of choirs, we have the church orchestra, pictured here. And on November 20, 1933, there was a concert and a reception held by the choir. Here's a picture of that choir from 1933, along with a list of membership. Some of these individuals may also have participated in the 1934 spring recital that was held in the Montgomery Room. Not long after the December 16th presentation of Handel's Messiah, there was a plan that was laid for the Westminster Choir to give a concert the following Sunday on January 15th. Here we have a 1935 picture of the junior choir. In this image, we have the singers planning for a Vesper service music, and it wasn't that long after that following Easter, the Goodwill Tour of Eastern Cities was announced. On March 4, 1935, the LABC Choir offered a concert series, a recital. On April 22, 1935, a 1,400-mile concert tour began with a convocation at CRDS. 60 choir members boarded 2 buses bound for 7 cities in Pennsylvania, 1 in New York, and 1 in New Jersey. In this image from August 1924, the LABC Quartet sings at a service in Maplewood Park. And it was following the June resignation of LABC organist Lawrence Frank that Mr. Marlowe Smith began as music director. It was under his leadership that on March 27, 1936, the first annual concert by the LABC Orchestra was held. On April 18, 1938, Professor Gustav Lehmann led the Rochester Chapel Choir in Mendelssohn's Elijah at First Baptist Church, and the choir then made a tour of 6 Midwestern cities. 2 years later, on February 25, 1940, the orchestra gave a concert at the Mount Olivet Baptist Church, Ralph Talbert, director. On March 21, 1940, the choir presented Brahms' Requiem for the Maundy Thursday service. In May of 1940, the orchestra gave its closing concert of the season at St. Mark's Italian Baptist Church on Bay and Niagara. Not long after that, the orchestra began its rehearsals for the 7th season. In March of 1942, it was suggested that the availability of a librarian to follow the care of the purchased music must be investigated, and a few months later, on May 17th, it was noted that the music library was in splendid condition due to the work of Miss Amy Dewey. By 1944, it became apparent that the organ needed to be rebuilt. An entirely new instrument was out of the question because of the cost and because of the unavailability of needed materials due to the war effort. Therefore, it was in 1944 that a capital campaign had begun, entitled the Memorial Organ Fund, to honor the LABC members who had been killed in war to date, those missing in action, and those who had been honorably discharged. New organ would require a reconfiguration of the sanctuary. In March of 1947, Colgate Rochester Divinity School Chorus presented a concert at LABC. And that following year, the Women's Society presented the LABC Choir in concert. Of interesting note, in May of 1948, it was counted 13 pianos in the church building. On December of 1949, the LABC choir presented a concert to assist an injured minister. It was in March of 1950 that the Central Presbyterian Church Choir provided the music for the Federation of Churches Union Lenten service held at LABC. The LABC players presented Dust of the Road. Here in November of 1950, we have a professional recording made by the choir that went on sale at the annual church bazaar for $1.50 each. 200 were sold and 350 were ordered. In the same spirit of recording, the choir recorded several hymns that were used on WHIM's Sunday evening worship program, and the children's worship time on WHIM featured the LABC Junior Choir. And on June 1, 1951, 18,000 people attended a music festival held at the Highland Bowl, led by Marlo Smith, director of the Intercity Choir. And here we have information about the 40-voice Colgate University Glee Club that presented a concert at LABC in 1952. Following a few very busy years of concerts, in 1955, there was a dedication of the Baldwin Grand Piano, a memorial to Helen Barrett Montgomery. This emphasis on music is clear from the 1958 summer music schedule for Sunday morning services. Through all the ups and downs, from 1931 to 1961, music continued to be a vital part of the ministry and mission of Lake Avenue Baptist Church.